So we saw a lot happen with the rail workers about Congress breaking their strike, right? Well, it's not just the rail workers. And this is something I've been trying to warn people about, that because we were having so many like worker strikes, that eventually it was going to get to the point where some of these states were going to try to make it illegal for certain professions to strike. And so in Massachusetts, we are one of those states, I think Florida is one too, where it's illegal for teachers to go on strike. But recently, teachers in Woburn, Massachusetts decided to go on strike anyway. So they did what you would call the wildcat strike, and they get fined. So the union gets fined thousands of dollars each day, basically, that they're on strike. So they reached an agreement. But it brought up this question. And now this is Governor Healy. Now she's our new governor as of this year, actually. And she was supposed to be different. And I tried to warn people about her, because people were like, oh, we have a Democrat governor again, things are going to be so much better. And I tried to tell people that Maura Healey is just as corporate. So this came out recently, and it says that Governor Healey is against legalizing teacher strikes. And she said that kids have been through enough.
The kids.
This is someone, I can't play the video because of copyright, but this is someone who she ran on, creating change and obviously also identity politics. They pushed that heavily with her. They said this will be our first LGBTQ woman to be governor of the state.
Oh my God.
That was something that was heavily.
Now we get a woman that can break strikes. Slay queen, break that strike, queen.
Yeah.
Is that hit you differently, JB, because she's part of the LGBTQ? I noticed you had a severe reaction when Savvy said she's part of the LGBTQ, because I know I'm offended when Black identity politics are kind of used. Does that offend you, JB?
Yes, CJ. Yes, it offends me. It offends the hell out of me, because they're literally using a disenfranchised community in order to disenfranchise other people, and that pisses me off.
Yeah. So this is what happened. So because that strike just happened recently, it brought up the question, now that we have a new governor, can we reverse it and make it so that it's not illegal for teachers to go on strike here? So it said teacher strikes are illegal in Massachusetts and 37 other states, but the Massachusetts Teacher Association plans to file legislation soon that would allow strikes. So WBZ TV's John Keller, he interviewed Governor Maura Healey and asked her if she thought it was a good idea. And this is what she said: I don't. I've come to this, John, as the proud daughter of educators. I think we should be doing everything we can to support our educators, particularly in this time and what so many have been through with the pandemic. A lot of strain on our educators, also a lot of strain on our kids and families. Every day when I see kids out of school because of a strike, my heart just breaks, because kids have been through enough in terms of learning, loss, and the like. But let me tell you why some of the teachers went on strike. They didn't want to pay these people. Like, some of these teachers had wages that were owed to them for over a year ago, back wages that weren't paid, raises that they didn't get, that weren't implemented, that were supposed to be implemented in August. Some of them have been working without a contract since August, and they didn't want to pay these people. So it's just, they had no choice but to go on strike. But she doesn't want to reverse that. She still wants to keep it so that it's illegal for teachers to go on strike. And I think that's ridiculous.
And what does that literally mean, Savvy, since you're in a state that where it is illegal? So I heard you say fines. Like what? So like what happens? Could a teacher get arrested also? Like what happens when they go on strike, when they say it's illegal to go on strike?
They don't arrest them, but they fine the union like thousands of dollars each day that they're on strike. And this is where like the mayor is supposed to step in, whichever like district is, the mayor is supposed to step in. And then because this has happened twice this year already, that's why they're deferring to the governor and saying, don't you think you might need to change something here because this is happening? But it's not just the teachers in Woburn. Also, Boston Public School teachers, they're another one. They came out a couple of weeks ago and said they're owed back wages going back like 2 years ago. And nobody has paid these people. And they're just like, every time we ask about it, they come up with excuses. Now the excuse is the technology isn't working well. So They said they don't know how long it's going to take to get them the wages that they're owed. And also because the backlog is so long, they said it would take hours of manpower to figure out who is owed what based on the degrees that they have in the years of service. This is just ridiculous. People have to understand we were shut down during the height of the pandemic as a state, and we were shut down for a while. They still made the teachers come to school to teach at an empty classroom while the kids were at home learning remotely. And a lot of the kids that live in impoverished communities, they struggled and did worse academically during that time because of the fact that not everybody has a household where they can have a room to theirself and not have a brother or sister that shares that room with them, where they have a quiet space that they can go to in their own laptop for 8 hours a day. They didn't think about that. They didn't think about those kids. So it's just, to me, it didn't make any sense to me. It didn't make any sense. They said that they feel like the teachers are being selfish. But the point that I want to drive home is that this is just the beginning, because the Supreme Court is already in talks right now about making it illegal for certain industries to go on strike in this country because of what happened last year. So this is why I say we have to have a general strike. At this point, it's just they're going to try to do everything that they can to prevent giving workers their rights. And so I would highly recommend that people check out Shama Sawant's new organization, Workers Strike Back, and sign up for that and get involved with that, because this whole thing of like voting for president and congressman and stuff, that's not changing anything.
Are you telling me that Marianne Williamson won't solve this problem?
No, she ain't going to solve it. No, see, this is a state thing. This is a state. It's in 37 other states. It's illegal for teachers to go on strike.
So
that just
go
ahead, Nick. I know you. I know you.
I'll let JB go first. I'll let JB go first.
Well, okay. So saying that you don't want the teachers to go on strike because for the children, that's like saying that this antiviral that needs to be injected, you don't want the kid to get injected with the you don't want a person to get injected by this antiviral because you don't want them to get stuck with the needle. But even though they're dying from the virus. And so it's like, wait a minute. So you don't want me to stick the needle for the antiviral that will save the person's life. So you rather just let the person die instead of getting that injection. That's basically what it is. Because if you want the kids to get taught, you need to pay the teachers a livable wage in order for them to teach the children. So if they go on strike in order to get that livable wage, well, you need to break some eggs to make an omelet. So scramble that motherfucker. Like, what? Are you kidding me right now? So this. Go ahead, dog.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, we can't let the kids go through this anymore, so we gotta continue to pay the teachers like crap. Like, if you actually care about the kids, why not just pay them double? Apparently their value is so high that their wages don't match their value. I thought you told us that the reason why McDonald's workers don't make that much money is because they don't bring value. You just admitted that these people are so valuable that you're willing to take away their democratic right to go on strike. Do you guys understand why I'm Marxist with a capital M? I don't dance around and sugarcoat this shit like a lot of people who are afraid to lose viewership do. A lot of people who are afraid, I don't want to scare the right wingers off. No, I am a Marxist with a capital M, because capitalism is the highest form of authoritarianism. You guys understand? Yes. Capitalism is the highest form of authoritarianism. You was told growing up, I was told growing up that communism was authoritarianism. You know, the dictatorship of the proletariat, where we own the means of production to the point where there's no need of a capitalist state anymore. That's the authoritarian ideology. Meanwhile, under the capitalist ideology, you have the people who have capital, who own the means of production, who have the power to shut down your ability to strike. They can shut down your ability to strike. How is that not the highest form of authoritarianism? It's under our capitalist state, where the largest police state that ever existed the United States prison industrial complex that imprisons 1/4 of the world's prison population, it exists in capitalist America, not in China. China has 1.1 billion people, 3 times more than we do. Jail less people than we do. You don't see them breaking up these kind of strikes. In fact, the West making fun of China because they came to the demands of the protesters. How dare China be democratic? So the only reason I got interested in doing this is to get more people to become anti-capitalist, to understand that this system is right into their core. Joe Biden, Marianne Williamson, none of these capitalists are going to change this system that is right on the core level unless we have a Marxist framework that is based on that struggle. We are not getting anywhere. That's my last thought, CJ. Go ahead.
No, I was going to bring up this comment because it felt like it alludes to sort of what we think about this here, which is striking is not a right. It's a power. Workers' power. Power is taken. Because I didn't understand that there was even a concept that strikes can be illegal till like 7 years ago. I didn't even understand. Because I don't understand. What do you mean? It's illegal. Like if I'm gonna strike, I'm just gonna walk out this motherfucking door right here. What are you gonna do? Like, what mechanism is gonna stop me from going on strike? And it just sounds like there's a fine, but there are some states I hear that you can get arrested. Maybe there's some industries you can get arrested, like the railroad industry. Go ahead, Nick, if you were gonna.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add, because I didn't want to cut you off, is most people think they're capitalists. You're not a capitalist. You're an exploited worker. Unless you own capital, unless you're an investor, unless you're part of the managerial class, you're not a capitalist. You are an exploited worker. You guys understand? And most people have no idea the power that capitalists wield. That's why my comment I wanted to reply when he said, I didn't even know they can break strikes. Most people don't. This is what I learned recently too. People always hear this stuff. I didn't know they can break the railroad strike. Yeah, most people have no idea how much power capitalists are given under this central planning model. Our democracy does not exist. That's almost I misspoke there. We don't live in a democracy. You can predict every single election at a 97% rate based on who raises the most money. Is that a democracy? That's a capitalist dictatorship. The police work for the capitalists. But that's why you did a segment just now, CJ. You got Stephen A. Smith, Sean Handy, dapping. Because the power that they wield, they are part of a fraternity. And my only goal in this fucking life, and the only reason I have a platform, is to get people to understand that. Not red, blue. Not none of this culture war shit. It is literally class, the people on top, that has nothing but disdain, class disdain. And this is my response to when you brought this up, Sabby, when they forced teachers to go in. That's literally just class disdain. And you guys know there's plenty of examples of this where they just force, they almost like they just showing hateful disdain towards the workers, like a power flex. And we need to have that same mentality against the ruling class.
And they force them back.
Go ahead, TJ.
They force them back with no resolution of their concern. It's like rail workers, the law says go back, and it's okay. And what are we gonna do about what we said? Nothing. We're literally gonna do nothing's gonna happen to these teachers. Like, no, they're not gonna be paid more. These teachers, they're just nothing's gonna happen. You can't just think about that. I just take a second to think. You're not getting paid enough, and the law says you have to just keep going to work, not getting paid enough.
They don't want you. It's gotten to the point where, and I want to play this clip really quick from Second Thought, because Nick, when you brought up democracy, this is something I talked about recently about social democracy, and Second Thought brought up this, and he said social democracy actually isn't good enough. And I didn't think about this before.
Yeah, I saw that video. It's a good video.
Yeah. I'm just going to play this part right here, because he explains why even like the whole like social dems and like, you know, free college and Medicare for all, he explains why that is not good enough. And it has to deal with capitalism.
Yeah, this is a great video.
Guy richer. For an ideology with democracy in the name, social democracy notably fails to provide democracy in the place where you spend most of your waking hours. High unionization and tripartite negotiations between the state, capitalists, and labor make that better than under a pure laissez-faire approach, but they still only balance the scales between the one guy at the top of the company and the 99 people who work there. They don't actually account for the number of people on each side the way a democracy would. They only make sure that the one guy doesn't go too far and still gets most of the money. And regardless, people in any capitalist society are bound to the profit motive. So the decisions workers make in this marginally better situation, even if they had full democratic agency, still need to produce a profit for their company and their economy. So the typical capitalist race to the bottom still applies, as everyone tries to outcompete for higher profit margins. But that's domestically, where workers' exploitation is relatively low and compensated for by a good safety net and universal amenities. Salaries in social democracies are high and public services are great. The problem with social democracy is that in order for capitalists to make good profits under this arrangement, where they pay their workers slightly better and don't get to hoard as much, somebody somewhere needs to be exploited a lot more. And that's where the global south comes in.
There it is.
That piece is very important, I think, because even when we look at countries like Germany and Denmark that have like some of these like social democracies, it's still under capitalism. So even though they may not be exploiting the people in their country, they're exploiting someone somewhere else. And a lot of times it ends up being like the global south. So this is why like we have to push back against like the social Dems when they make these statements like we just need Medicare for all and that's or we just need universal college. That's not enough.
And they benefit from the evils of capitalism and disaster capitalism. People like Marianne Williamson, what they don't bring up the fact that Sweden was one of the largest arms dealers to Yemen.
Yep.
It was one of the largest sponsors of the genocide in Yemen. So even though they have social democracy, they benefit and build their companies through weapon sales and other illicit means that through a Marxist approach and through communism, we wouldn't eliminate that kind of stuff. But a great example and great video. That's a great video. You guys should check it out. I saw that video earlier. It's a good one. Go ahead, CJ. I know you want to chime in.
JB, I think he wanted to chime in. Go ahead.
Yeah. So these teachers are basically being forced to work. What do you call when someone is forced to work against their will? What do we call it? Come on, class. You guys know the word.
Is it indentured servitude, or is it ugly word? That ugly word.
That ugly word.
But they're not whipped, JB. They're not getting whipped though. Who cares that you get the real labor out of them?
Look, I said this before. If you're working under, remember this word, duress. Duress. That means you're being forced. And what does duress mean? I will show you, because I showed it to you guys on Sunday on the JB show. Some of y'all weren't live. Some of y'all weren't tuning in to the JB show. That's okay. I'm going to show you right now. These people are being put under the word duress. What does duress mean? Duress means threats, violence, constraints, or other action brought to bear on someone to do something against their will or better judgment. It is synonymous with the words coercion, compulsion, force, pressure, intimidation. So, guess what? Wouldn't you say that slaves, chattel slaves, were under duress to work because they were under coercion, compulsion, force, pressure, intimidation by the whip? Well, what can also be a figurative whip? Can't homelessness, hunger, and having no health care also be a whip?
Yes, JB.
Absolutely. So guess what? Then that means that these teachers, these workers are working under duress. They're under the coercion, compulsion, force, pressure, and intimidation of being unhoused, having no health care, or also not having food, so that they keep teaching without a sufficient wage in order to work for the state. So it is forced labor. Forced labor is slavery. Have you subscribed to RBN? Have you liked the stream? Because this is the type of stuff that we talk about. And this is why CJ's smile of approval will be upon you if you do that.
This is why you should be joining the JB channel. This is the type of analysis you're gonna get broken
Maybe it's
down, and you're
fun.
gonna get some freaking spot on an analogy.
you.
This is why you gotta join.
And that's
subscribe
and that
to
what happens.
JB
I told you,
channel.
you guys saw what happened when you have no Marxist analysis. JB show you what happened when you do have Marxist analysis. And he did a lot of theory reading on there as well. Make sure you guys support JB. Great analysis.
Loan and
If you guys have anything else you want to chime in on the story, feel free. I have a short story.
I was just gonna say,
Go ahead, Abby.
really quick. This is why, like, a lot of these companies have gotten to this place where they want the employees to just kind of come in, put their head down, don't complain, don't say anything. And if you do, it's like they want you to feel lucky to even have a job. And that's kind of what it's come to in this country. So
yeah, well,
duress is the only way they can get people back to take these low wage jobs. So duress is a very important component to capitalism, to maintaining its control, to low wage is duress. Is that you see homeless people? That's duress.
Yes.
You see
Why
wages going up. You see rent prices going up. Oh, you got to work an extra part-time job. That's duress. You see all these layoffs from Amazon and that's all. This is all duress. They do it, and capitalists do it. They don't have to have a plan. What do you mean? They're in the back? No, the plan is capitalism and sustaining that. So they just all operate in a way to keep capitalism moving forward, or to produce it in a way that they are extracting the wealth. It's not how come all of a sudden all these people need to be laid off unless their capitalists are trying to forcibly do something to the economic system. Go ahead, JP.
Why? To your point, CJ, which is such a great point with how capitalists exploit duress. Why do you guys think capitalists are so deathly afraid of single payer healthcare or NHS system? Because there's studies that show that single payer will save money, increase the quality of life. So they have no argument in terms of the fiscal argument or the health argument. It does not matter. The only thing they care about is control. If you give people health care, now you don't have to work that job because of health care. Now you got more flexibility in what jobs you can choose. Like, damn, I really wish I could do that job I love, but that job doesn't offer as good health care as this corporate soul draining piece of shit job I have. So it's dirty control. So that's a great point, and that connects with duress. They want you to work with the duress of the threat of healthcare over your head.